Hi there, welcome back to our channel. From flat concrete slab to full walls and lintels, how much does it cost to raise a house in Nigeria right now? Let's find out. In our previous videos, we had established what it took to raise this building project from the foundation to the DPC, from the DPC to the decking 1 level, then the decking itself, giving this building a strong and level concrete floor. Now, in this next stage, we are going from decking to full block and lintels, the point where rooms take shape, walls rise, and the structure begins to truly look like a home. We will break down every construction activity, the materials and quantities used, and the real cost in August 2025 for this phase in Nigeria. If you are planning your own build or just curious about the real life numbers, stay tuned. We'll take you step by step through the process with tips to save money and avoid mistakes along the way. As has been established in other videos, the first step we take after the decking is cast and it has been watered is the setting out of the block wall on top of it. And this is a process that we do by, of course, observing from the drawing the longest line. That is where we take our clue from. And then from there, square it to get all the 4 corners of the building. And from there, we now start marking out the internal spaces one after the other. And this ensures that all the walls, all the rooms now start taking shape, giving entrance from the first block, marking out the doors, and then depending on the design, from either the second block or the third or fourth block, then the windows will start coming up. So for this particular project, the window level started at 2 blocks. So after the second course of block, then our windows started growing. So forming on top of the decking involves marking out all the spaces and strategically positioning the doors and the windows as they are in drawing. Now, recall that because the extension on top of the decking was not up to, would not have been up to 600 millimeters if we cast the decking before adding the extension columns. We had to add the extension columns before we did the decking. That implied as we were forming the walls, the extension columns were already there. This implies that the ironwork was already partially done. So as soon as the walls started going up and got to the lintel level, which in this case was 9 courses of block, of course the carpenters as well as the iron benders came to site and started their own work. And one of the things we do, minor work we do here, is to kind of partially close up the block holes so that the concrete that will enter into it will just be enough to bind it together with the wall and not fall all the way down. Since what we're using here is a hollow block. So at this point, All the walls have gone to the lintel level, and the carpenters are doing the lintel boarding. Of course, first of all, taking the bottom. Now, we take the bottom to ensure that everything is at plumb level. So the bottom plumbs and of course takes it down to ensure that the lintel is at the same level. Now, the lintel and the block work is used to correct level in most cases. So as they are laying blocks, you will notice that if time is not taken, some places will be a little bit higher than others. But when you are doing the lintel, you take a clue from one end and of course plumb it with the head of line, which we normally call rope, to the other side, and then level it. So when you now take that level, that means every lintel along that line will be that level, and that helps to ensure that by the end of the day, the top of the lintel around the building is the same level, and that gives us a relatively level finish by the end of the day. Before we continue, let us talk a bit about the lintel. In building constructions, a lintel is a horizontal structural element placed above openings like doors and windows. Those are the main places you will see them, and it has a number of functions. Number one, it is considered that a lintel distributes the load from the structure above. For instance, the walls, the roof, the floors, to the supporting side of the opening, so it doesn't collapse. For instance, the place you have walls above before the decking, so the lintel will help to carry the load and then distribute it through the columns and transfer it to the load-bearing foundation we've done. Now, the next thing is structural support. It keeps the walls above the opening stable and prevents cracking. This is a very important factor. So, normally once you have a door or window, normally you still have some blocks on top of it before, whether the roof or whatever. So the lintel ensures that it is balanced, it carries the load. Then, of course, it also forms, another function is opening formation. It maintains the shape and size of the door or window opening during and after the construction. As you can see what we did here, this lintel shows exactly where the door ends and the shape and size of the door. Then the next thing is aesthetic integration. It allows for neat finishes and alignment with architectural designs. There's some places you come, you see doors that are arched, right? So it's still the lintel that we use to get that shape. Then the next thing is protection from weather. In some cases, it acts as a barrier to prevent seepage of rainwater into the opening. For instance, if a door that is outside, the lintel kind of recesses that door a little bit so that even if it is raining, it kind of covers it a little bit. Then durability. So it enhances the long-term strength of the wall around the opening. Yes, because once it has a good support and base, the wall can actually stay and last longer to perform its function. So as at this stage, most parts of the project had its lintel completed. And of course, the next thing that we are to do here is to do what we call the leveling of blocks, which in real sense is adding of 2, 3 or 4 courses of block depending on the project's needs on top of the lintel to get to either the next decking or the roof. So that is the work going on here as at now. Now, let's talk about the quantity of materials used. By the time this leveling was done, that is this milestone from the decking 1 to the decking 2 level, it was observed that the following materials had been used: 33 lengths of 16 mm rods, 35 lengths of 12 mm rods, 20 lengths of 8 mm rods, 2,000 pieces of 9 inches blocks, 1 roll of binding wire, 65 bags of cement, 100 1 by 12 by 12, that is the board for the lintels. Then we use the China truck for the sand, which is more like 30 tons of sand. Other things used here include 15 tons of chippings, that is the granite, and of course there was provision for the electrical and plumbing pipings. This concludes the materials that were used for this stage. Now, let's talk about the cost. We have mentioned all the materials that were used as per our record. And now, the total cost of all these materials in today's Nigeria. I wouldn't come to mention the individual cost of each of these materials, so I will just give a total of that. So these materials cost this project a total of 5,264,750 naira. And on the labor which was employed to achieve this project to this level, that is from the decking, all the block walls, including the lintels, and this labor includes the mason work, the carpentry work, the iron work, the casting, and every other ancillary jobs to get this work to this level. It cost this project 1,450,000 naira. And this brings the total of both material and labor for this stage and this particular project to be 6,714,750 naira. And that's it for today's milestone, from slab to full block work and lintels. You've seen the process, the materials, and the real cost here in Nigeria as of August 2025. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. It helps more people like you discover our building series. Got questions about blocks, the block work, the lintels, or any stage of construction? Please drop them in the comments and we'll reply appropriately. And if you are following this journey, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification so that you don't miss the next stage, where we move from lintel, that is this leveling, to the next decking. Of course, this is a 2-story building or a duplex with a paint floor. Until then, we are UMEC Real Estate Construction Services Limited, and we bring your dream home into reality. Thank you for being with us this far, and see you in our next one.